Hey folks, welcome to Black Gumbo. Here's episode 3 of our gardening question and answer. Okay, it's really cold outside. We had a front blow through yesterday and it's nice and sunshiny and windy and wintry, and I love a day like this, except nothing happens in the garden. So we're going to talk about gardening to hold us over through the winter until we can start growing. Okay, so let's get to the questions. Wipeout XL asks, what's one vegetable that I would not grow and why? Well, to be honest with you, I'd grow just about anything, even if I like it or not. I grew lima beans in my very first garden. Even though I hate lima beans, I heard that they were easy to grow and they would climb up my trellis, and they did. And actually, because I grew them, I actually ate some of them. So I'd probably grow almost anything in my garden if I thought it was interesting or I thought somebody could use it. I used to not like beets. I didn't like beets at all, but when I grew them in my garden and I learned to juice those beets, man, I grow beets every year now. I like the greens too. But what I probably don't grow in my garden are perennials or vegetables that take 2 seasons to grow. And that's because I have limited space. I'm a hobby gardener and my garden is small. And so for me to plug in something like asparagus or something that's going to take more than a season to grow, I probably pass it up. The only ones that I'll do are probably onions, because you know, I can plant around onions, and well, I like onions. So yeah, that's what I probably wouldn't grow, are those things that take me more than a season. I like annuals. I like to grow quickly, and I have 3 growing seasons here, so I want to take advantage of all of that. So yeah, perennials, that's what I'm not going to grow. Real quick, David Pruitt asks, what are some tomato varieties that do well in the hot summers and hot or humid weather? Every tomato will do good in hot and humid weather if you care for it, but there are, you know, hybrids that are and some heirlooms and open pollinated varieties that do better than others, but I don't know what they are, because I'm into so many tomatoes that I'll just try anything and see if it works. And so far, most of my tomato varieties have worked out quite well. I found that your standard Roma tomato does well for me in the summer. In the heat of the summer, if no one else is producing, my Romas tend to keep going. And I know that Romas are said to be a determinate or a semi-determinate tomato, meaning they have 1 or 2 flushes of fruit and that's all. But in my experience, the Romas that I've grown tend to flush over time and keep on putting fruit. So cherry tomatoes also do well. All the smaller varieties seem to do very well in the hot and humid climate for me here. I have had some Oxheart style and stuffing style tomatoes that didn't do so well, but I don't think it was the heat. I just think that, I don't know, I think they were just slower growers. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't be afraid to try any tomato you want to try. Just care for it, just tend it, get it in time is the main key. Because come summer, come August and September in my Zone 9A Texas coast, hardly any tomatoes are going to grow unless you put them under shade cloth and you baby those things along. I had a few come through the summer this year. My Juliet tomato that was a cutting came through the summer just fine, and it's actually ripening some fruit on the vine even right now as I talk. That's a Juliet. Now these Juliets are a hybrid that were designed to be crack resistant, and boy are they crack resistant. They're also like leather. I don't really care for them that much, but I'll take a tomato in December. So yeah, some of those smaller tomatoes do really well in the summer heat. I wish I could answer your question better, but that's all I got for you, David. Try anything and just enjoy the tomatoes. Sherry UK asks, she would like ideas on what you can do to minimize watering over the summer, how to prepare beds, mulching, and that sort of thing. Man, that is a good question for my area especially. I think you touched on it, Sherry. Mulching, in my opinion, is the best thing you can do to minimize watering. And I don't mean just sprinkling some wood chips on your garden, but a nice thick, heavy 4 to 5, well for me, 3 inches is the minimum that I aim for. 3-inch thick, what is that, 5 or 6 millimeters? I mean 5 or 6 centimeters. You can see I'm old school American. I don't have the metric system down. Anyway, so yeah, mulch. Mulch is probably the best thing you can do. Mulch preserves your soil health by doing a number of things. Number one, if you've got a good mulch, it's permeable. Water gets down, soaks in, and so it helps to prevent evaporation from the soil. Mulch also insulates the soil, and literally, if you have bare soil, that's bad. Bare soil is not found in nature. Something's going to come and cover that soil, and so you want to do it, and you want to control it. Mulch controls the weeds as well, but as for watering, if you have a thick layer of mulch, you can come out on the hottest part of a summer day, dig down in that mulch, and you'll find that there's moisture still down in that soil. Chinese cabbage is starting to get heads on it, so we're that much closer to kimchi. Look at that. So yeah, you got to have mulch. Look at that. That is just a basic wood chip mulch, and it is 3 inches deep minimum. There's the soil right there, so you can kind of get an idea of how thickly I like to lay it on. And I have very few weeds in here, but more importantly, my water is retained. People say that if you put wood chips and wood mulch in your garden, it's going to bind up nitrogen and your plants aren't going to get any nitrogen. Well, look at these plants. These plants are all about nitrogen because it's all about leaf growth. And you look at those plants and they're growing fine. So the difference is if you mix that wood chips into your soil, then yes, you're going to bind up nitrogen. But at the horizon where that soil meets the mulch, that's the only place where there's nitrogen being bound up. That's where the bacteria are going to work on the mulch up from the bottom up. But the soil down below doesn't have any wood chips in it, so it's fine. And so the roots go beneath that and they get all the nitrogen they need. That's my number one tip, my absolute number one tip. Even if you're potting and growing in pots, I put a thick layer of mulch in almost every potted plant that I have, because that especially in a potted plant where that pot's going to heat up and the water evaporates quicker because it's a small portion of soil and it's elevated outside of the ground. It doesn't have the benefit of the insulating factor that the in-ground soil has. Man, those pots are going to need watering every single day, but I can avoid fluctuations in dry, moist by putting a good layer of mulch in my pots. Yeah, so that's the biggest thing you can do to minimize watering in the summer, is put a heavy layer of mulch. What kind of mulch? I have a whole video about mulch. I'll link it right there. I think I have a video about mulch. Okay, real quick. Carolyn Steele and Kathleen O'Sullivan both want to know how the pepper pruning video results came. They'd like to see the results of that. Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't take a video with like harvest results. That video took off. That was a crazy video for me. It's still my biggest video, and it's one of the lousiest videos I have. I'm going to redo that actually and show results. What topping a pepper plant does is it causes the plant to send out side growth, and this happens with just about any plant. You top it, its growing tip is cut off, and it begins to send out side growth and gets bushier and stockier, and will oftentimes produce more fruit. And oftentimes when it produces that fruit's smaller, because pepper plants generally produce a set amount of fruit. They're kind of like a determinate tomato. At least a lot of pepper plants are this way. And so they'll put more fruit out, but the fruit will be a little bit smaller. But that's okay with me if I want a healthier, shorter, stockier plant that's not going to blow down in the wind and I don't have to stake up too much. So that's what pruning or topping a pepper plant does, is it forces out side growth. And it works. It worked well for me. And a lot of them you'll see that come from the store. If you're buying your plants from like Bonnie Plants and places like that, you can look at them until they've already been topped. Ann Smith says, I'd like to see how you cook some of your veggies. And I've got a playlist called Ali Sheba Kitchen in which I do some cooking. But you know, Ann, they're just not that popular. And that, combined with the fact that my kitchen layout does not lend itself to setting up a camera and the lighting is really bad, it's difficult for me to do those cooking videos the way I'd like them to be. Thanks, Phoebe. My dog just dropped off a Frisbee and gave you a little bump there. So yeah, that's why I don't really do a lot of... Phoebe! It's just not as quality as I'd like it to be. So that's why I don't do a lot of them. I'll try to do a few of them for you, Ian. All right, I got a good question here from Marie McFarlane. Do you order seed every season? She asks, you don't save any seeds? I don't really save a lot of seed. I have saved some seeds. I've saved the larger things like cowpeas, beans, things like that. I've saved some watermelon seed. I saved some pumpkin seed. But generally, no, I don't save the other things like tomatoes and peppers and things like that, because I want to grow as many varieties as I can. And every year, man, there's new varieties, new things coming out that I haven't seen in the past, and I got to try those, especially with tomatoes and peppers. Now, about saving seeds, you want to make sure that you have open pollinated types. These are the types that remain true to the cultivar. They're stabilized. Now, people say, well, heirloom, hybrid, open pollinated, what's the difference between all that? I'll do a whole separate video on that, but in a nutshell, all heirlooms are open pollinated varieties. It means that they can be pollinated by any other variety, but they're going to remain true to type, and you can save the seed. That's what open pollinated means. It's a little windy today. I hope this comes through. Phil Porter says, I've been told that tap water can kill the bacteria and inhibit the fungal life in leaf mold. Is this true? Should I only use rainwater? It is true that the chemicals in tap water do kill off some of the bacteria and the fungal life in both leaf mold and in your compost pile and in your garden. However, I mean, think about it. These bacteria are masters at survival, and they bounce back really quick. I don't really worry about it. I've been using tap water in my compost for as long as I've been composting, and it doesn't seem to have a negative effect. I know I'm killing off some bacteria in there, but I also know there's a colony down there that reproduces exponentially and bounce right back. So yeah, I don't worry about that, and it's worked for me. Now, I'm sure that I could get better results if I was really in need of very fast compost. Now, not leaf mold. Leaf mold needs to be a slow process, a fungal process. It needs to be a cold process, and it needs to take a long time to get the benefit of leaf mold. But compost, on the other hand, like this stuff I'm standing right next to, if I want that to speed up and go at its optimum temperature and really burn and really have that bacterial life do its job quickly, then yes, I probably would not use chlorinated water on it. I wouldn't use tap water. I might get a slight bump in performance, but I'm personally not convinced that that's going to be a bump that's worth me messing with. So that's my answer for that. Hope that answers it, Phil. I also have one question from a friend of mine at church. My brother came over to my house and he wanted to see the studio, the Black Gumbo studio. And well, it's not really a studio. It's just my garage. I actually work out here quite often. And yeah, so I accumulate things that bring me joy. I don't like the term man cave, because I think a man cave is that culture of separation and isolation, but I do spend a lot of time out here, so I guess that's kind of what it is. I work out here during the day. This is where I do my work. So, you know, I also accumulate things in the background, like this poster here. You can get these kinds of posters. Aren't they awesome? I think it's Cavallini Papers. I think that's what it's called. And you can find their website, or you can just buy them off of Amazon. There's my Scottish family's clan tartan plaque. I've got Martin Luther there because I was raised a Lutheran, but more so I like Luther as the spark of the Reformation, one of the main guys in the Reformation. If you don't know what the Reformation's all about, man, you need to go study and see what bravery and boldness and standing on absolute truth is all about. I like the Astros. I like vintage ammunition and firearm stuff. There's a lot of gunsmithing gear right there. That painting, I painted that when I was 16, and that one above when I was 16. That's at my grandmother's house with Canadian geese flying over. Vintage and modern lanterns are kind of a thing I like, so I put a lot of those around. I've gathered up a few of those over the years. I actually use them, though. They're not just, you know, for decoration. So yeah, and there's a painting that Sam did of some vegetables. And yeah, so it's my stuff. Oh, that little thing right there, that's a piece of shrapnel that nearly disemboweled me once at a event I was at in which we blew up a car. Oh! And yeah, we blew up a car far too close to the car. We learned our lesson, and I have written on there the date that I was foolish, and it is a memorial to God's grace that I did not die. So yeah. So yeah, that's my stuff, all my work stuff, and this is where I start my seeds out here. My seed table is right over there, and this is my desk, my bench, my workbench, and it's just a place that brings me great joy. It's a great place of peace. This time, I have a question for you. As I seek to grow my channel and to make Black Gumbo more successful, it's no secret that we content creators desire to monetize our channels and make money from our channels, that helps us to keep making our videos. I want to ask you, do you buy merchandise, branded merchandise from your favorite gardeners who have branded merchandise? You see, personally, I've never cared to wear somebody else's logo and wander around with, advertising somebody else's channel. But I do buy things that I find are interesting and garden related and garden oriented. I've got some compost t-shirts and things like that. Would you buy Black Gumbo merchandise, and would you prefer it to not be branded merchandise, but just very interesting gardening type stuff? You see, I was a graphic designer for 30 years. I mean, I guess I still am. And I am an illustrator as well. I can draw, I can do stuff, I can make interesting stuff. And I have some ideas brewing in my mind, and I think that this coming year, I might offer some merchandise. Are you interested in that? I don't want to waste my time. Let me know in the comment section. Thanks. Hey, thanks for joining me on Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. If you'd like your question answered, leave a comment. Drop a comment down below, or go to my community tab and leave me a question there in the thread about questions. And I'll try to answer it. If I have the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'm not going to blow smoke. So, yeah, leave a question. Join us on Instagram and follow The Beauty of Our Garden if you'd like to join us there. Also on Facebook, we do a few Facebook things that are different than the channel occasionally. But it's also a good way to chit-chat back and forth. And, yeah, so happy gardening to you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.